you to Vandergraaf for sponsoring this month's edition of Road to Recovery. Visit their website for more information about the Vandergraaf drum motor, designed specifically for heavy industry applications.
Richard, let's talk about commercial construction, because right now it seems like with 2020 and COVID and just the circumstances that we're all in right now, some fundamental shifts may be underway in office spaces with retail, and the retail side may have been underway for years already, but I think we're seeing more dependence on Amazon and probably more warehouses are going up as opposed to big retail centers. So again, from your view, Richard, what does the commercial segment look like, in the decade that's on deck here? Do you see a fundamental shift taking place where maybe the office sector is going to look a little different, the retail space is going to be a little different?
Yeah, let's start with the easy sectors. Unfortunately, also the worst sectors. I think retail and hotel will have trouble gaining significant traction until we see a vaccine and until we see wide adoption of that vaccine. So in reality, you're not looking at really any recovery in those two sectors probably until well into 2022. Beyond that, I think traditional brick and mortar retail will continue to lose share to online retailing. So the translation there is that what's on tap for the warehouse sector, that should continue to flourish. In our data, in terms of both nominal dollars as well as square footage, warehouse construction broke a record in 2019. Our data goes back to 1967. So it broke a record in 2019. We expect it to pretty much hold level this year in terms of warehouse construction, and then break another record next year. So as you suggested, that shift to online and e-commerce will continue. I think the office sector, that's a little tougher nugget, I think, to crack. There's certainly been a lot of discussion around that shift to work from home. I'm not 100% convinced there. I think we need to see a vaccine, how quickly and widely adopted it's going to be. And until we see that, of course, employers are going to be very leery about sending their employees back into an office setting. Once we get past that, though, I think it's still too early to tell. There's been firms in the past that have tried to shift to work from home, Yahoo being one of the largest, and they ended up pulling everybody back. Of course, this is a completely different animal. But the one thing we've noticed about the office sector, though, over time is that since 2000, the record level for office construction was way back in 2000, and each subsequent peak has been lower. So the 2007 peak for office construction was lower than the 2000 peak, and the 2019 peak was lower than 2007. So we've seen office work generally decline over time. The one opportunity, I would say, though, in the office sector, even if we start shifting more to the work from home model, is on the renovation side of the data. In terms of making people feel more comfortable at work, that would be improved air handling and HVAC systems, perhaps more internal barriers. We've this past cycle, we saw a lot of open space office and shared and communal space, so maybe retrofits and renovation data or renovation work to provide those barriers and make workers feel more comfortable. So perhaps that's an opportunity in the office sector as well.
Okay. Fundamental shift one way or another, I think, whether you're talking about renovation
yeah.
or bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
Lastly, Richard, I'm curious, this has got to be an interesting time for you being an economist. If you're a reader of Pitt and Corey, I'm wondering what indicators is Richard Branch looking at in the months to come? What meaningful pieces should those with a stake in the construction industry, with those within the aggregate industry, be kind of paying attention to? What are you going to be paying attention to?
Sure. So yeah, great point, because economic data is generally severely lagging the events, which are the COVID outbreak that's essentially happening in real time. So I think for me that the number one piece of data that we'll be looking at Dodge in terms of the economics team is the number of new virus cases in those states where it has started to flare up, especially as we start to get back into the back to school season. And if we see kids back in schools and teachers and whatnot, do we start to see larger outbreaks? So I think that's the number one thing, because that really dictates the trajectory of growth and recovery should we start to see, again, more draconian lockdowns on activity. Beyond that, though, I think employment is the next key metric, especially the number of new claims for unemployment insurance. We had those large employment gains in May and in June, but unfortunately, new claims for unemployment insurance remain around 1.3 million, which is abnormally high, which tells us is that there's still a lot of slack in the labor market. So if we start to see that trend lower, that tells us that the recovery is on track and the labor market's continuing to grow and the economy is slowly improving. But if we start to see a retrenchment in unemployment claims starting to go back up, that's certainly a bad sign for the